Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the James Freel Show for the day July 13th, 2018. Very happy to have you with me, as always. Today we have more of the same of what you've come to expect while listening to the James Freel Show. A lot of rambling, news for the uninformed, and a whole lot of other stuff. Not really, that's about it. Still looking for that first subscriber on YouTube. I have a few followers on my Twitter account, but I have a feeling it's probably fake, and that's okay. So moving forward with the James Freel Show, where do I see this program in about a year? I would say success would be to have over 50, to go 80% a week. I mean, obviously I'm going to miss a week here and there, but this is my fourth in a row since bringing it back on the new platform. I consider that to be success. The longest I went before without missing, I think, was about 8. So we'll just see how it goes in the future. So we've got a great show for you coming up. I've got all my notes here for what I'm going to ramble about. But first, news for the uninformed. Our top story: the Justice Department is reopening its investigation into the 1955 murder of Emmett Till. New information from a recent book has brought new details to light. Till was murdered by 2 men, and he was 14 when he was brutally murdered in Mississippi. Outrage over photographs of his body at his open casket funeral helped propel the civil rights movement into full swing. Interesting that they reopened that so long. I'm interested. That's a very interesting case. I'll be very much looking forward to seeing what comes from it. In sports, the World Cup finals are officially in place. Croatia will play France this Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the title. France last won the cup in 1998, while Croatia is still looking for their first World Cup championship. That'll be interesting. I hope to get around to watching it. I haven't watched much of any of it. I heard it was surprising that the UK lost, or Britain. Oh, well, I'll be honest. I'm not a huge fan of soccer, but I mean, the World Cup, it is a cool event for the whole world to come around. I'm not supposed to be giving my opinions during News for the Uninformed. That's what it's there for, to prevent me from doing for the rest of the time. Anyway, and in pop culture, actor George Clooney was injured Tuesday after his scooter was hit by a car on the Italian island of Sardinia, police and hospital officials said. The 57-year-old actor was taken to the hospital in the city of Olbia, but his injuries were not serious, and he was quickly discharged. Oh, interesting. He went to college at a place near where I used to live. I grew up in Dayton, and he went to, I believe he was from Northern Kentucky, because I believe he went to Northern Kentucky University. One of my professors in undergrad went to school with him there. Very interesting. He's a big shot. He must spend a lot of time in Europe. I wonder what that's like, comparing the two cultures. Constantly coming back and forth between the two. Must be fascinating. Alright, so before I begin the rambling section of my show, I have a few points of housekeeping to take care of. Last week I had mentioned that I would be getting my first conversations with James Freel up, and that my guest would be over shortly. And they did arrive, and we had a very good conversation. It was a solid conversation. I can't remember if I had mentioned that I am going to keep my regular podcast, the one you're listening to right now, separate from any guests I have. That will be entitled Conversations with James Freel. So the conversation went very well. We did about 2 hours. What I didn't anticipate after finishing Conversations with James Freel was the level of editing it would require. There are certain elements. This is just a lot I didn't predict. And by the way, this isn't the first Conversations with James Freel. It was the first one I had where I had a better understanding of the equipment that I used. I had a guest on the previous week and we had a very interesting conversation, but some of it got a bit too controversial and I felt a bit uncomfortable attaching my name to it. Although the guest was excellent, it seemed to charter into territory that may not have been the best for this show. Long story short, it may be a while before I'm able to bring a conversation podcast back on. It is likely that sometime in the future, the show that I did last week will eventually get on the air. I would like it to be the first James Freel episode of conversations with James Freel that I have. We will just see what the future entails, because the truth is, listen, this is just a hobby of mine. If you're listening, I'm very, well, thank you, and I'm happy to have you, like I say at the top of every show. But chances are very good that, you know what I was thinking about, and this isn't, I don't mean to start the rambling section halfway through, but it'd be very interesting if I die forgetting about this account and I leave it up, and if somebody 200 or 300 years in the future is listening to it. Times are very different. Man, I wonder what the population is like. Anyway, so the point is, I was wrong. I didn't promise it would be up. I said it would be, but I lied because it is not up, and it may be a bit before I figure that out. I think I'm going to put any conversations on hold until I can figure out a system of editing. I want to break all conversations down into segments of 22 minutes, and I'm working on little jingles in between to sort of organize the conversation and make it better. Alright, so moving on. Time for the rambling section, everyone's favorite. My favorite, because everyone who listens to this is just me. This past week, I had a meetup and I was early and I was very hungry. And I wound up going to a fast food restaurant. And the truth is, I try to avoid fast food restaurants, not for the typical reason of I know it's not good for you, because I know it's not good for you. It tastes. A lot of people say, "Oh, that tastes horrible." I still think fast food. Maybe it's because when I was a child, it would always be a big deal when we went to a fast food restaurant. So maybe it's just nostalgia that I'm eating. But I don't think it is, because I do like I tend to like the taste of it. I'm not going to name the organization that I went into because I don't want to badmouth them, and I don't really think I'm going to. It was more this specific franchise. So I go into it. I've got a handful of quarters ready to light up the menu. Not really. And I notice they have well, before I say that, more on why. It's like I once saw a meme, and it stated that when you get fast food as a kid, it's a victory. When you get fast food as an adult, it's a defeat. And I feel that way more financially than I do health-wise, because it doesn't seem like a good value. Whenever I finish something, I probably go, I'm not going to lie, I was about to say once a month. That's not true. It's more like 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a month. And if that's bad, if I'm going 4 a month, I don't know, maybe it's even more than that. But after I finish, I'm like, wow, did I really just spend $4.59 on all of that? And I feel horrible afterwards. I may be full, but still not feeling great. So anyway, I decide this is what I'm doing. I'm going into this fast food restaurant. It's going to taste good. I'm not going to feel good afterwards. I go in, and I notice they have this automated ordering machine. And also I notice that there's a really long line. And I'll be honest with you, some people hate automation. Like when you go to a grocery store and they have the self-checkout. I'm not going to lie, I love self-automation. Mostly because I am introverted by nature and I like to avoid talking to people. And sometimes I like to special order things, and I feel weird when I ask for it. Sometimes they give me a vibe like, oh geez, we got one of these guys. But I went in and I see that and I'm thinking, you know what? I've been hearing about these on the news, how they're the new thing. I'm gonna give this a try. I'm gonna use the automated machine. I look up at it and it looks all right. I think this might work out. I don't have to talk to anyone. All I have to wait for is for them to call my number, and I can go indulge in fast food with even less human interaction. By the way, I am not against human interaction. I think it's a good thing, and I would like to be better at it. The plain and simple truth is that I'm just not that good at it, so I try to avoid it as much as possible. Maybe that's why I do this, as sort of an outlet against it anyway. So I order what I want. I'm able to add extra things to it, whatever's free, what's not. I'm not big on ordering a fountain soda. I did hear a story that said one of the big reasons that these fast food companies are implementing these self-automated things is because people tend to order more when they use self-automation. So, and the truth is that worked because I normally just order a glass of water because for one I'm a cheapskate and also I'm trying to, oh look at me, I'm trying to eat healthier by getting a water as opposed to soda. I love soda, by the way. I think it's a great product. I don't use it all the time. It should be viewed more as a dessert. Anyway, so I couldn't find the glass of water and I thought, you know what? I'll just wing it and I'll get the soda. Listen to the thing. Listen to me. At first I'm all like, oh, I never get it, and then I got it. Long story short, I get it, and so I'm like, all right, so pay. And there's no cash. You can't use cash. And I planned on paying in cash. I don't like using a debit card. I don't like using a credit card. I have one of each. And I thought, okay, I can't take cash. Had I known this, I still probably would have tried it. So I did. I get it out. I stick it, the chip thing, up in there, up in the dispenser, and it says, oh, this isn't working. You're going to have to print this out, take it up to the register. I'm like, okay, not a big deal. It is interesting. You can order and then take it to the register and pay there. I guess that is if you're using cash. But I did that, and I take the receipt, and I'm like, all right, I just have to, at least my conversation interaction will be shorter. I don't have to talk much to him. I just say, hey, paying for this. And that is that. But I look up and I see the line is extremely long. And I normally don't get so upset about lines, but I was so overwhelmed by the software that I forgot one of the big reasons I had done it in the first place was because I saw the opportunity. There's no line here. Granted, the wait would still be the same, but it's the act of being in a line that can be discouraging and annoying to people. I think you know what I mean. It can just be that way. So I'm like, all right, I'll wait in this line. No big deal. The food turned out to be okay. That I went to look down at my notes and see. So what's the upshot of the story, James? What are you trying to tell the people? And that's about my story. I ended up waiting in line. The food was okay. I felt horrible afterwards, but that was to be expected. Moving on. So I have been taking walks lately around my neighborhood. I enjoy walks. Walks are a good time. And the only reason, actually, walks in and of themselves, I don't really care for. They can get boring. The only reason I do walks is because I can listen to a book on tape while I'm doing it. And to illustrate this point, one of my favorite novels, or books, I don't even know the difference between a book or a novel. Someone tweet that at me. What, at James Freel Show, the difference between a book and a novel. Hey James, do you remember that time that there was this search engine on the internet and you could just look things up? Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to get people to listen. No one's listening. I'm trying to get some interaction here. I'm trying to gain some traction. And right now I have zero. That's okay because this is a hobby, but nonetheless, I don't know where I'm going with this. But anyway, so to illustrate how I only like walks so that I can listen to a book on tape, one of my favorite books or novels, 1984, and I had finished it and I was about a mile and a half away from where I live. So I called my brother, like, hey, can you come pick me up? I finished this book. I have nothing to do on the walk home. And he must have been in a good mood because he picked me up, and that was that. So the book I had recently listened to, I don't remember the exact name of it. It was only about 4.5 hours long. I should probably give the person credit, the person who wrote it, because it was a solid read. It made it to where it was easier to understand the situation, because I'll be honest, I'm kind of a dunce. I mean, the fact that I need audiobooks, I think I talked about that last week or the week before. The book was just called The War to End All Wars by Russell Friedman. That might be a child's book for all I know. The level it was read at, everything was put on simple terms. There was no intense geopolitical, I mean, that word was used, but a lot of people talk like that. But like I said, the book put it in terms simple enough for me to understand, and I think World War One is one of the wars that gets overshadowed by World War Two, because that's like World War Two is like, it's like one of those sequels that totally overshadowed the original, but the original was still great. And I want to be very hesitant in how I put this, because I'm not trying to say the whole war was great. In fact, although World War One was called the Great War, but it's kind of like how The Empire Strikes Back. Everyone, when they think of when you say "I am your father," people know what you're talking about. I don't know. It's kind of like, yeah, the sequel was amazing, but it was amazing in different ways. Quick Star Wars spiels. I always say, if you ask me to rank my favorite Star Wars movies, I always say 4 is my favorite Star Wars movie. But if you ask me to rank my favorite movies, Empire Strikes Back is a better movie than A New Hope. But A New Hope is a better Star Wars movie, if that makes sense, because it shifts the parameters. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. One of the most interesting parts of the story, and I think we all had to read All Is Quiet on the Western Front in high school, and this rang a bell, but it's interesting. I think it was the Christmas of 1914. Soldiers came out who were fighting each other from opposite sides between Britain and Germany, or maybe it was France and Germany, I don't know. But they were just being totally diplomatic, like, hey, Merry Christmas. I know tomorrow we're going to have to start shooting at each other, but it's interesting how history separates us from that. It's hard for me to imagine living life back then, because it's like, oh, I have a computer, I have a cell phone. I'm way more. No, those people were just like you and me. They might not have known as much, but how much does my computer really give me the ability to be more enlightened than you are? I don't think much. I really don't think much. Another interesting aspect of but really, before I move on, I just want to say, again, World War One was I think it was a more interesting war to study. It was because of the causes, and this sort of ties into what I was about to say, how ambiguous the cause was. I mean, let's be real here. The way when I'm following the causes, like, it sounded like a spider web. There are all these alliances, and it's like, well, you hit him. Well, you did this. Well, I gotta hold my allegiance to that person. And by the time you get down to as soon as the conflict finally starts, like, manifesting into actual battle, it's like, what are we fighting over again? Some politician got shot or something. Oh dear. And whatever. Another interesting aspect of it to me was the role technology played, because I was always under the assumption at this point they were using radios to communicate. No, they weren't. Apparently, any sort of radio is far too bulky. There was no portable use of it. So they had still used carrier pigeons. Carrier pigeons. That's insane to me. And it's not that insane. I'm kind of exaggerating right now. But I am fascinated by the use of carrier pigeons. I didn't think it was possible to even do that. I'm like, you can't train a bird to fly to a certain place. And then it makes a lot more sense when you understand that these birds were naturally migrating back to where, so you can take them and you have so many that you can use. I wonder if they sent out more than one to send a message, just in case a few of them got, yeah, like, maybe they lose their way, maybe. I don't know. Of course, I wonder if that increases the chances that the message might get intercepted. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I think it's the first war I learned that was the first to use planes, and planes were still in their infancy. I would love to be one of the first people who got to use planes. That must have taken some courage. I take it back. I don't think I would have wanted to be the first. I mean, it would have been a cool experience to know, or just to get that first ever bird's eye view of a landscape and just what that experience must have been like. Must have been fascinating. I also learned that submarines were. Am I more impressed? I think I'm more impressed that we were able to nail down the use of submarines before plane. I don't know. It's hard to make that judgment when so much is. When history sort of blinds you, it biases you against what is more impressive, because I'm more scared of the ocean than I am of the. I'd be much more reluctant to go in a submarine, and I've flown before, and I enjoy flying. I think it's interesting. I love being that high up. Regardless. As I said, electronics, I mean, radio, that wouldn't even work back then. What's the deal with that? No, that's interesting. Interesting stuff. I wonder how many times I've said interesting. I think that's my new I've mentioned before. I'm trying to cut down on the ums here. That's not working out too well. Actually, it is, but I'm just filling it in with the word interesting. Oh well. Moving on. I've been having a hard time keeping up with my cardio. I've been doing the past 4 or 5 months. I like the elliptical. I think the elliptical is a good machine. Doesn't leave blisters on your feet. You don't pound your knees. I like it as opposed to running. There's been a heat wave in Toledo lately, and I've had so many excuses not to do the elliptical. The past week, as I mentioned, I had my rib. I took a week off, but prior to that, I've been doing it since like February. I've been doing at least 2 hours a week, and it's just been impossible. I don't know if it's my motivation after taking off a week, or if it's just so hot. It is significantly hotter now than it's been the rest of the year, and I do it in a garage, so I get the outdoor heat. But I don't. What do you do? It's very frustrating because I'm starting to get discouraged, and I'm starting to feel lazy, and I'm starting to get this vicious cycle that I don't know what's more important, physical or mental. I don't know. I'm not an athletic person. I need a motivational speaker to come in and tell me how it is. There seems to be a solid motivational speaker for almost every type of subject, whether it be, I don't know, finance or mental health. There seems to be a rock star for all of that. I don't really see one for physical fitness. It's probably because it's so difficult. It's hard to stay motivated. Prior to what I'm doing now, I mean, I had always been an on again, off again. I think the 4 or 5 months, as long as I've done, I'm at a decent weight. I'm about 5'9". I hover between 140 and 150. Although ever since I did the elliptical, I've been safely around 140. And I like it there. I might be about 5'10 now. That 5'9 is from about 3 or 4 years ago. I haven't checked since. Hopefully I am taller, because that means that my weight ratio is better suited. Much better suited. But basically, since I haven't been able to keep up on the elliptical, I've told myself, okay, you got to do something. You can't just not do the elliptical. You have to do. So I'm taking walks. And frankly, I feel almost, not quite as, but almost as, not winded, but exhausted after the walks as I would after the elliptical. I'm not short of, well, yeah, I am kind of short of breath, and I take about a 3.5 mile walk, and it takes me time. It's the heat. Normally, that kind of walk wouldn't be so demanding, but that's the way it's been, and I feel just as good. One of the main reasons I like cardio is I don't lift weights. It's something maybe at some point in my life I should probably start. Actually, I'm probably at the perfect age right now to start doing that, but I don't have the motivation. That's what being in a long-term relation committed will do to you. I mean, why am I trying to impress other people? Got all I need. Regardless, I feel good about the walks I've been doing, but the benefits that came from an elliptical are not there. If anyone's got any pointers on athleticism, please tweet me at James Freel Show. I think I got about 11 followers by now. We'll have to see. We'll keep you updated. We're taking callers. I would really find that interesting to get that whole system set up where I could have callers on here and listen to them. Probably wind up like that New York public TV access guy. That was a funny thing. Look that up. He's like talking about gun control. And people would call in and they were pranking him and they were saying very vulgar stuff to him. The really funny ones were when they would like make a point to him. I don't know. Look it up. I'm doing a horrible job of explaining it, just like I do with everything. Oh, James, you're gonna burn yourself right there with the self-deprecation. Yes, I am, because we are almost done here. We're at 27 minutes. All right. Well, the way this show works is I write down 3 topics that I'm gonna ramble about, but I always throw in a bonus just in case. You folks ever get those spam callers? I'm trying to do my best to avoid them. It's like, the worst thing is I think that they know your number, so they call numbers that look like your number so that you think it's a trusted source. I don't know whether to answer or not. I answered once and it clearly was a spam. I like trolling them whenever you get those like I don't even, these are spam callers. They're not scam callers. There's a difference. I like trolling the scam callers by wasting as much time as possible. I mean, it just saves the next app from it, but that's an enjoyable thing to do. But what drives me crazy is I don't know how to handle the spam ones, the ones where it's like, you may have already qualified for, or like your car warranty is up or something and you can buy an extended, I don't know. But I once answered it and I'm worried that they looked at that and saw, oh, this guy answers the phone. We'll call him. I've got like 2 or 3 of these a day. It's like, how did you get my number? And I'm too afraid to answer. And I always tell myself, well, what if it's an important professional affair? And I think, you know what? If it was important, they would leave a message. I don't know if that's a good philosophy to go by or not. But it keeps me... I also, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like talking on the phone. Or talking to anyone, rather, especially the phone, because you can't pick up on the visual cues you get. And I think that's why the phone freaks me out so much. Especially. So I use that excuse. If it was important, they would leave a message. And none of them do. So I assume most of them are spam, S-P-A-M callers. You can probably understand me perfectly. I'm working out with, as I said, this equipment that I'm using ever since I started the new platform is different. Actually, I think, what is this, 29? I think 28, 27. 26 was still old equipment. But you win some, you lose some. Alright, folks, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. Keep an eye out. I might get conversations with James Freel up. I don't know. Working on some, not ads, but some different things. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. This has been the James Freel Show.